Have you ever asked yourself what you would do if the very identity you've built your life on began to collapse? Would you protect what you have? Or would you risk destroying it all just to feel alive again? This is not only about women, or marriage, or age. It is about the human confrontation with time itself. At 40, the afternoon of life begins, and as Jung wrote, the shadows of the afternoon reveal what the morning light once concealed. A woman stands before her mirror and does not only see a face, she sees the ghost of who she once was. For 2 decades, her world was shaped by attention, compliments, desire, the intoxicating power of being chosen. Then, almost without warning, the stream dries up. Nietzsche said, "Man would rather will nothingness than not will at all." And when her will to be desired fades, what remains is silence. Tell me, have you ever felt that silence inside yourself, when something that once defined you no longer holds its power? This is not vanity. It is identity collapse. From birth, she was programmed. Beauty equals worth, youth equals power, desirability equals existence. For 20 years, the program runs without error. But when biology rewrites the code, the system breaks. Jung called this the arrival of individuation, when the unconscious storms the surface and demands recognition. At 40, that storm comes with violence. She is no longer only a wife or a mother. She is someone caught between the fading echo of youth and the silence of aging. So the question is, are you moving forward into who you must become? Or are you still clinging to a past that will never return? In that void, she searches, not for love, not for stability, but for proof. Proof that she still exists, that she has not been erased. And when the familiar devotion of her husband feels like duty, she turns elsewhere. Because validation from a stranger tastes like resurrection. What is more dangerous? Losing love, or losing the feeling that you are still seen? Ask yourself honestly, which one would shatter you more? At 40, a woman is no longer the same being you once knew. Her reflection has changed, and with it, her identity. The devotion of her husband, once a comfort, now feels like background noise. Loyalty becomes invisible when the mind is starving for novelty. What once was enough, the daily gestures, the stable love, now fails to touch her. Schopenhauer warned that human desire is a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. When her youth fades, the pendulum does not stop. It only swings harder, searching for a spark. The tragedy is that the same stability which once gave her safety now feels like a prison. The family she built, the home she cared for, the life she chose, all become reminders of time passing, of the inevitability of age. So she rebels, not against her husband, not against her children, but against mortality itself. Have you noticed how quickly routine can turn from comfort into suffocation? A single compliment from a stranger, a look, a smile, a small recognition, strikes her like lightning. It tells her, you still exist. And that small taste of validation becomes more intoxicating than years of steady love. Because one man's daily devotion is expected, but another man's fleeting attention is freely given. And that difference awakens her like a drug. But this hunger is not new. It has been waiting, buried beneath family obligations and years of repetition. Now, at midlife, the hunger rises. The shadow whispers that she is disappearing, and she listens. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Her unconscious has risen, and she calls it freedom. So let me ask you, when life becomes ordinary, do you still recognize its value? Or do you chase after the extraordinary, even if it destroys what you have? This is the beginning of the spiral. Once she feels what she has missed, once she remembers the intoxication of being pursued, ordinary life no longer satisfies. The shadow grows, the void widens, and the stable love of years cannot silence the hunger for resurrection. Do you know when a marriage enters the danger zone? It is not when love fades, it is when nostalgia begins to shine brighter than the present. Have you ever caught yourself smiling more at old memories than at your current reality? This is how it begins. She speaks of her past not with embarrassment but with longing. The reckless nights, the old boyfriends, the freedom of youth. Suddenly these fragments return with a sparkle in her eyes. The life she built with you, stable and predictable, feels like a cage compared to the fantasy of what she remembers. The tragedy is that memory is never reality, it is always a distorted echo. Yet in her mind, the echo grows louder than the present. At the same time, new influences appear, friends who are divorced, who whisper poison disguised as wisdom. You deserve better, you've sacrificed too much, it's not too late to start over. They feed her ego, but they are not friends. They are dealers offering the drug of rebellion. Nietzsche warned, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if her why shifts from family and creation to self and validation? Then the how becomes destruction. Let me ask you, what voices in your life are shaping your perception of happiness? Are they pushing you closer to truth or tempting you toward escape? Social media amplifies the storm. Scrolling through endless highlights, comparing her private struggles to curated illusions. Transformation stories, women starting over, love after 40. The algorithm knows her hunger and feeds it. Every post whispers, "You could have more. You should have more." Slowly, her stable life becomes not a blessing, but a prison. And here is the cruel irony. The very technology that promised connection becomes the fire that burns the foundation of her family. She is no longer simply dissatisfied. She is convinced that her discontent is proof she must escape. And once that belief takes root, the countdown begins. So ask yourself, when you compare your life to others, are you grateful for what you have, or do you secretly believe that something else could save you? This is the hidden war, between gratitude and illusion, between stability and novelty, between the truth of the present and the fantasy of the past. And most who lose this war never see it coming. If you want to keep exploring the hidden truths of the human mind, subscribe now and turn on the bell, because what comes next will change the way you see yourself forever. Have you ever noticed how routine can shift from being a comfort to feeling like a slow suffocation? One day, it is safety. The next, it is a cage. This is the point where change becomes visible. Subtle at first, new skincare routines, a little more time spent on appearance, a new style. But soon, it escalates. Drastic diets, obsessive workouts, clothes that belong to someone 20 years younger. These are not gestures of care, they are acts of desperation. Every purchase, every reflection in the mirror is an attempt to reverse time. But time never walks backward. Schopenhauer wrote that human desire is a blind, restless will, always chasing, never arriving. What you see here is not vanity, but the restless will turn against mortality itself. She is no longer simply seeking beauty, she is declaring war on aging, and in that war, the first casualty is the family she built. The emotional distance follows. She asks for space, for me time, for moments that once never existed. The husband feels her slipping away, through arguments that come out of nowhere, or a sudden, eerie sweetness that hides unspoken guilt. Both are signs of withdrawal. Both reveal that something is breaking beneath the surface. Nietzsche once said, "In every real man a child is hidden that wants to play, but in every woman who cannot accept her shadow, there is a frightened child who demands to be seen." At midlife, this child is not innocent, it is ruthless, willing to destroy anything that reminds her that youth is gone. So ask yourself, when change begins to creep into your life, do you face it with acceptance? Or do you deny it until it consumes everything you love? The tragedy is not in the aging itself, but in the refusal to embrace it. And when denial takes hold, destruction follows like a shadow at dusk. Have you ever wondered why some of the most devastating betrayals happen not in youth, but in midlife? At 40, her brain no longer responds the way it once did. The reward systems that once lit up with small gestures now barely flicker. Holding hands, a quiet dinner, the rituals of love, once enough to spark joy, now register as nothing more than routine maintenance. The neurological pathways have shifted, and with them, her hunger has deepened. What was once satisfying is now dull. What was once joy is now silence. This is the danger of novelty. The smallest taste of outside validation, a compliment from a stranger, a glance that lingers, hits like a drug. It carries more weight than years of devotion, not because she is cruel, but because her starving mind craves intensity over consistency. Jung warned that what we refuse to face in ourselves will eventually control us. And here, what she cannot face is the inevitability of aging, of becoming ordinary. So she seeks extremes. Emotional earthquakes where once a whisper was enough. Affairs not for love, but for the illusion of being chosen again. She becomes capable of betrayals she never imagined, not out of malice, but out of desperation to matter. Society fuels the spiral. Magazines, shows, endless voices telling her, "You deserve more, follow your heart, never settle." But they never speak of the cost. They celebrate the act of breaking free, yet they remain silent about the broken families left behind. The children shuffled between homes, the husbands left trying to explain the chaos. Nietzsche said, "In individuals insanity is rare, but in groups it is the rule." And when an entire culture celebrates the panic of midlife as empowerment, destruction becomes inevitable. So I ask you, when the world tells you to chase your desires without limit, do you pause to ask what the price will be? Because in the war against time, no one wins. And yet, in denial, she is willing to sacrifice everything for the illusion of one last victory. Do you know what is most terrifying about this story? It is not the betrayal itself, it is the rewriting of history. When she leaves, the marriage you built together becomes a lie in her new narrative. Every joy is recast as pretense, every memory repainted as oppression. To justify her flight from time, she must transform you into the villain. Have you ever felt the sting of someone rewriting your story, turning love into illusion, devotion into control? The children too become casualties in this war against aging. They are told, "You'll understand one day. I deserve to be happy." But children do not want happy parents. They want stability. They want both parents present, unbroken. Yet her fear of invisibility outweighs their need for security. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And so she runs. Not toward freedom, but away from the shadow she refuses to face. Not toward love, but away from mortality itself. You, her husband, her children, become mirrors reflecting her age, and mirrors are what she wants to shatter. Society applauds her rebellion. They call it bravery. But the ruins left behind are silent, unseen, and irreversible. This is not empowerment. It is escape. Not evolution, but collapse. So I ask you this. If faced with the terror of losing yourself, would you have the courage to confront your shadow? Or would you burn everything around you to silence it? Leave your answer in the comments, because your truth may be darker than you admit. And this is where the story ends, or perhaps where the next one begins. Because if you think the crisis of midlife is terrifying, wait until you see how modern society manipulates your deepest fears through technology itself. In the next video, we will uncover how algorithms, screens, and endless stimulation don't just control your attention, they control your soul. Don't miss it.